So, not sure if you heard, but Al Pacino released a memoir where he discussed how he went broke. He went from having 50 million to nothing. And you might think this is crazy, but a lot of athletes, celebrities, actors, they go broke all the time. And it's very easy because when you have a lot of money flying in and you have someone managing your money, like, it's very easy for you to lose control over your finances. And let's be honest, not to offend anyone, but creatives are not good with money. Just like people who are good with money are not really good at being creative. So it is what it is. But if I was Al Pacino's accountant, this is how I would clean up his mess. First and foremost, I would make sure that he does not owe any tax debt. The IRS are the last people that you want to mess with. And considering how much money Al Pacino made over the past 50 years, having unpaid taxes is probably common for him. I'm pretty sure he has a lot of outstanding debt. If you owe money to the IRS, they can seize your bank accounts, they can garnish wages, they can take your assets. Like, they have so much power. Also, the IRS and even the states, they will send you notices by mail. So if you don't live at that address anymore, it's your responsibility to update your address and let them know. Otherwise, they're going to be like, listen, we sent you our notices with unpaid tax debt. You didn't respond, so now you're in trouble. So you have a lot of responsibility when it comes to that. So I will create an account on irs.gov using his social security number. So the IRS will put everything that happens with your taxes on that website. So you can track and make sure that everything looks okay. And then I would create the same thing for whichever state that he lives in, California or New York or New Jersey. Same thing there. They put everything in there and just make sure that everything is good. Okay, so next I would do an audit of his expenses over the past 5 years because we want to know what he's spending his money on. We can't do it for 50 years. We can't do it for 30 years. 5 years is a long time, but a lot of people have taken advantage of him and he's famous and he hasn't really looked at his finances. So 5 years is the minimum. So first you download every single debit and credit card transaction, and then you go through each expense line by line and make sure that he recognizes what it is. Whatever he doesn't recognize, I would just ask for a receipt from the credit card company. They might not give it to us. I think credit card companies have a 1 to 2 year rule. Anything after that is just a lost cause, but it's always worth asking because I'm pretty sure they wouldn't let him dispute any 5-year-old expenses. So if you find an expense that's within 1 to 2 years, you would just ask for a receipt. If they don't send you a receipt on time, you will just get your money back. So this is a good way to track kind of where your head is in terms of expenses and if you have any recurring subscriptions that you forgot about, etc. So he mentions that he owns 16 cars. I have no idea how he ended up with 16 cars, but I do know that most cars just go down in value. There are always a few exceptions, collectibles, etc. They go up in value, but most cars go down in value. So I would just sell them and maybe keep 1 or 2 that he wants to keep. There's a reason for this. He wouldn't end up losing money on his cars because these are Al Pacino's cars. It's not regular cars. A lot of people would pay a premium just to say that they bought a car from Al Pacino. People would buy the car just so they can meet Al Pacino and get the keys from him personally. I promise you. He also mentioned that he was paying $400,000 a year for landscaping services for properties he did not even live in. So because the work was done, he can't just ask for a refund. However, I would at least ask for an invoice of all the work that was done. Then I would figure out which of these landscaping services I still need in my current home. And then I would ask the company for some kind of good faith credit of the services. I would just tell them that, listen, the charges are not authorized. I'm having money problems right now. Can we work something out? And that, Pacino would keep them as his main landscaper going forward, but he would need a credit of $400K, maybe $200K or $100K or $50K, whatever they can agree on. And then I would also tell them that they're allowed to use his name in the marketing materials for their business. So you got to do something that makes them happy and then yourself happy. You also got to be careful not to screw with small businesses because they did do the work. They didn't do anything wrong. It's not their fault that, Al Pacino can't keep track of his money. So at least work out a deal that makes both sides happy. And what about his properties? Whatever property he doesn't want, same strategy as the cars. Sell them as Al Pacino's old house. With the right marketing, you can sell this house as like a celebrity. Oh, he used to live here and, the marketing would be insane. All right, so at this point, we have a good grasp of where his finances are. So I would go ahead and sue his accountant. I'm sure Al Pacino already did this, but I would make sure I get every penny out of him. Why? Because it sends a message. Don't mess with me. You have no idea how many celebrities get scammed by their accountants and financial advisors. Steve Harvey was scammed by his accountant. The rapper Fat Joe was scammed by his accountant. And Dennis Rodman got scammed by his financial advisor. And this financial advisor that Rodman had scammed a bunch of other athletes as well. Like, seriously, where do you find these guys? If you look at my TikTok, I made a video about how celebrities will, when they get sued or they get a bill from the IRS, they will go and fight it in court. It's not that they don't want to pay. It's the fact that they'll pay, but they're going to put up a fight. So it sends a message like, don't mess with me. Like, if you have something legit, I'm going to pay it. But if you don't try and squeeze money out of me. So very few celebrities go after their accountants and financial advisors. And that's why I think that these high-level finance people think like, oh, these athletes are not that sharp. Let's just whatever. They're not going to do anything. And you got to send a message sometimes. I would also pull Al Pacino's credit report to make sure that there are no random accounts on there that shouldn't be there. Someone with his profile and this famous, I'm sure that there's some scammers who like used his social to open something weird. So I use a website called freecreditreport.com, and I can see all 3 of my credit scores on there. And I pay like $20 a month. It's totally worth it. I've used it for over 10 years. It's great. I would just go through it and dispute anything that looks suspicious. Next, in order to protect his wealth, he needs to set up a trust. So a trust is kind of like a will, but the owner, which is Al Pacino, decides what happens with the assets in the trust. So he can say, my kid gets this much, my ex-wife gets this much, and he has so many kids from so many different women, so he kind of needs this. If you don't set up a trust, when you pass away, the state will decide what happens with your money. It's called probate, and it's an ugly process, and you don't want to go through it. And no, you cannot just write a will. A will can get contested in court and thrown out. You need a trust. Finally, the man himself, Al Pacino, he needs to learn personal finance. A lot of people will hire an accountant and just be like, okay, let him handle it. And that's how you get scammed. You need to understand what they're doing. You need to know when they're doing something wrong, when they're doing something shady. You need to call them out, ask questions. So that's why a course is very necessary. I feel like in the US, they don't teach financial literacy to people on purpose because they want you to be dumb. I think in Florida, they made it a law that they need to teach personal finance in schools now, which is great. But I think for years, they have not taught it on purpose. So knowledge is power. You need to learn this stuff. People always say money isn't everything. It isn't everything, but you need it to live. It's like it's up there with oxygen. You don't need just oxygen to live, but without it, you'll die. So you need to understand how money works. Let me know if you have any other ideas for Al Pacino's comeback here. Please hit like, subscribe, and comment, and thank you for watching.